It's something I have to confess. I'm a lawyer. I'm one of the bad guys. I used to be one of the good guys. I used to be an organic chemist, and I tell all my clients that I'm still an organic chemist at heart, and they know that's not true. I'm a lawyer. They know I don't have a heart. But at least I do get to help the good guys change the world one biotechnology startup at a time. At Wilson Sonsini, so much of what we do is help small biotech companies, many of whom are university startups, get from the idea phase to the exit phase. And so much of what happens here is an iterative process. Advances in technology lead to new IP. New IP is leveraged into better investments. Ultimately, the value of your company and the value of your product is the value of your IP. So how do we build value? The first thing that you need to do as a small company is you need to establish an identity. Your investors need to know what they're investing in. What are you going to do? Are you going to manufacture a drug or an antibody? Are you going to draft code? Are you going to develop a research tool that other people are going to use to develop drugs? An investor doesn't want to hear that you think you can do it all. They want to know the one thing that you can do better than everybody else, and that's what they want to invest in. If you promise them too much, they're not going to believe it. As I said, the value of your company is the value of your IP. And major investors, big VCs, are going to examine your IP very, very closely and look for any kind of problems to make sure that they're getting into a good investment. If there's a problem, they want to know that they can solve it. They'll walk away from good technology very quickly if there is an unfixable IP problem. No matter how good your technology is, no matter how fascinating, no matter how novel, no matter how academically interesting, if it is not IP protectable, then it probably has no value. And I bring up the point patent or publish because this is something that comes up often when dealing with academic startups, because we get a lot of academic startups coming to us, and so often the first question, the very first question that a new client asks us is it a problem that I published this 3 years ago? And the answer is invariably yes, that's a problem. But it's not necessarily an unfixable problem, and it's something that needs to be thought about going forward. If you're still working with the university, if there's something that you need to publish, if there's something that you need to get out there, you can do both. You can patent and publish as long as you take the appropriate IP steps first. And it's a lot easier than it sounds. If you want to submit a manuscript to Nature tomorrow, send that Nature manuscript to the patent office today. It's that easy. If you're giving a seminar next week, send your PowerPoint slides to the patent office today. You can submit anything to the patent office as a patent application, and they'll honor that. Once you've done that, you've secured your rights, you can go ahead and publish, and you can avoid these kinds of problems that come up all the time when people publish without taking the appropriate IP steps first. Your company is going to start with some kind of technology, and very frequently, that technology is going to be in-licensed from a university. University patents are ordinarily going to give you protection around a key academic insight, a raw technology, not a finished commercial product. You need to know how that product is different or better than what is already out there, and you need to know how old the IP is. A patent is usually good for 20 years from the day that the application is originally filed. The older that application is, the less valuable it is. Ideally, you want something that's relatively new so you can get the maximum value out of it. But you also need to know what third parties are doing. You need to know the third-party IP. If there's a competitor out there working in this area, if there's another university working in this area, can you get a license to that too? And if you can't, then you have to be able to explain to your investors why that third-party IP is not a threat. They will want a story why it's not a problem. If you're getting technology from a university, you're going to have to go through a licensing process. At Wilson Sonsini, we do about 100 of these deals every year, representing a small company in licensing technology from a university. And every summer, we punish some poor summer intern by making them take all deals that we did in the last year and do a comprehensive statistical analysis of those 100 or so deals, and compare them to every deal ever done in the history of Wilson Sonsini. And I can tell you a little bit about what we get out of that analysis. A lot of universities are going to want equity in your company in exchange for access to the technology. Equity seems to be a bi-coastal phenomenon. East Coast universities, West Coast universities, they want equity. For some reason, the flyover states don't ask you for equity, and I can't explain why that is, but a Midwestern university very frequently won't ask for shares of the company. In our deals historically, the average equity that a university takes in the company is about 0.9%, but in all fairness, that value has a lot of zeros in it based on the flyover states. If we look at the amount of equity taken by universities who take a non-zero amount of equity, it's about 2.2% of the original stock is what the university ends up getting. As part of the licensing deal, you're going to make upfront payments to the university, usually thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars. They're going to want a royalty on your sales. Royalty increases generally as the value of the technology increases. If you're getting a license to a phase 3 drug, you might be paying a royalty north of 5%, maybe even a royalty tickling double digits. A drug that has been tested in animals, maybe 4%. A diagnostic, software, 2–2.5%, a medical device, 2%, a research tool, 1–1.5% royalty. The university is going to want to be reimbursed for its patent costs. These usually aren't big costs. They're going to expect you to write them a check for however much money they spent getting that patent. They'll want milestone payments. When you cross some major threshold, they'll want you to write them a flat fee check to share in your success. You might have to pay them a milestone for dosing your first human patient, for getting NDA approval, for things that you're really happy about that you're probably not entirely averse to writing a check for. And sub-licensing revenue, if you decide that you don't want to develop the technology and you just want to flip it to another small company, the university is going to want a big bite out of the revenue that you get from the sub-licensing. You need to know what patent you're getting a license to, and you need to know your field of use. A lot of universities want to keep your field of use very narrow to specifically what your company wants to do, and investors don't like that. Investors want, in your term sheet, when they look in the field of use column, they want to see one word, all. That's what you need to get, all. And it really is worth paying a little bit more in the royalty to get all. Because if you don't get all, then the university can license that technology to another company in another area, and you'll have some indirect competition. You would rather just have all. The same is true of territory. You want your territory to be the world. It is not good enough to have a license just in the United States. You need to know the term of your deal. At the very least, you want the term of your license to be the lifetime of the patents that you're getting a license to. Ideally, you would like something longer than that. The university is going to give you some diligence hoops to jump through. Usually they're not any kind of a problem. Usually they're things you would do anyway. They might give you a milestone to hire a CEO within 6 months, raise $500,000 of financing within a year. Things that you would do anyway. The university just wants to know that the company really is going somewhere. And again, if you do want to flip the technology to another company, you're going to have a lot of hoops to jump through there. You might get access to a technology that has regulatory protection from the FDA that is irrespective of your patents. If you're getting a license to a drug, you might get several years of protection upon FDA approval. You can get something similar in Europe too. In Europe, you usually get about 11 years. You get 12 years of regulatory exclusivity if you have a second indication. These are periods of time during which no one else can sell your product, even if you don't have a patent. When these regulatory periods expire, then the only protection that you have is your IP. And something critical happens when these protections do expire. If you have a live patent at the end of this exclusivity, very frequently, you can delay the entry of a generic competitor for 2.5 years, but only if you have a live patent. So, what happens if you get a license to very old IP, and you're using an antibody, you get 12 years of regulatory exclusivity, and your patent expires before that 12-year period? Well, you need second generation IP, because you need to have a new patent ready to go when that regulatory exclusivity peters out. From the day your company starts, your investors want to see you working on improvements of the technology that the company, not the university, is going to own. As much improvement as possible, preferably, you should get patents on something that looks like the commercial embodiment of the product. Do you have second generation code for your software? Do you have an improved device that has better sensitivity? If you have a drug, when you first dosed in a human, did you develop a new formulation? Did you find a dosage amount that reduced the side effects? When you get your PK/PD, definitely get a patent on your blood profile. Yes, you can do that. You can get a patent on your PK/PD. It's the best kind of protection that you can have against a generic competitor. But it's not enough just to know what's going on in your own portfolio. You need to know what your competitors are doing too. You constantly have to be looking around, seeing if anyone else has a patent that will be a competitive threat to your company. And your investors will want to know. When you find something, you might find that you can actually get a license to it, especially if it's from another university. But if you can't get a license, you have to be prepared to tell your investors a story, why this is okay, why it's not a problem, why you don't infringe, or why the competitor's patent is weak. Your investors will want to know the story on that. And if you ever, and this does happen, if you ever have the opportunity to patent your competitor's product, do it. Do it aggressively. Get as many patents as you can on what your competitors are doing. Cause as much trouble for your competitor as you possibly can. Make your competitors' investors lose faith in their investment. That's what you need to do. So who's going to invest in you? Most of your money is probably going to come from angels and VCs. Angels will usually put in small amounts of money early on, but most of the lifeblood of your company will come from big multi-million-dollar investments from venture capital groups. There are two key distinctions in the way these groups operate, and they come in the form of leadership and IP. Angels know they're getting in at an early stage. They don't expect you to have the final leadership team in place. They often know that they're dealing with a scientific founder who doesn't have a lot of business experience. They'll still invest knowing that the leadership team is growing. VCs want to see an experienced leadership team who knows how to run a small company. But they're reasonable people. If they like your technology and they like your IP and they see that you have a future, VCs will actually find you leadership teams. And in fact, good VCs, top-level VCs, will go out and find you the best person out there who's available to run your company to protect their investment. But they can really help you out. They can really steer your company in the right direction. There's also a distinction in the way that these entities look at IP. Angels know that they're getting in early. They know that the IP is incomplete. They know that there are unanswered questions. VCs don't tolerate uncertainty. VCs want a tight, coherent story. If there are any problems, they want to know that the problems can be solved. They're going to hire someone like me and spend a lot of money to look at everything, find all the rough spots, fix all the problems, figure out how a competitor would avoid your IP, figure out how a competitor would attack your IP. And if they don't like what they see on the IP front, either they'll ask you to fix it, or they'll walk away. There are a few different financing strategies that you can use. For angels, you'll probably be using a convertible note. It's a quick, easy way to get a small amount of money. It can be done very fast. VCs prefer issues of stock. That's a more tedious process. It takes a while, but that's the preferred way to make multi-million-dollar investments. You will probably not be doing a convertible note for $10 million. Stock is not the best way to start your company because it takes so long. You need to get money quickly when you're a young company, and that's why you should do convertible debt right out of the gate. Partnerships can be useful later on, especially for biopharma companies. When you're getting into clinical trials, if you need $50 million, $100 million, you might not be able to raise that. You might need to bring in an outside company. You might get involved with Roche or Pfizer, have them sponsor your clinical work. They would end up owning some rights in the product. They would end up getting some of the revenue out of it. But the situation for doing that would be if you have a first-generation product that needs clinical work, and you have a better second-generation product several years back in the pipe. You bring in a partner to develop the first product, use the proceeds of commercialization of the first product to finance the second product, which will be better and you will own and you will keep entirely to yourself. And these are things you can do to keep your company going, keep it alive, keep the money coming in, and keep the IP building up. I see about 100 people in this room. That's about $100 billion of biotechnology, more than enough to let us all retire early, and then we'll get bored and have to go start new companies again. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you for putting up with a bad guy for about 20 minutes. And best of luck to all of you in your biotechnology startups.